To hang up and start over.
Okay, I think we should be okay now. Is that all right? Can you see me?
I can.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
I'm so sorry about that. Sorry, we just had a few kind of dreadful Wi-Fi issues, and I just wanted to make sure it was all in place and everything was okay. And I think it seems to be all right now. Okay, great. Do shout if there's any issue. Very fittingly, I live next to a railway line. In fact, I live next to 6 railway lines, and it's very hot, and so I've got the triple glazing open, and you're probably going to hear a train right now.
Can you identify it by like the track noise alone?
Oh god, it's a Virgin train. I've got the Virgin track, then I've got the Overland, then I've got the Tube, which normally isn't.
Did you go to the estate agent and say, what I really need, right, in the flat is just quite a lot of train work?
I do. I love it. It's atmospheric. It's lovely when I write. I can, imagine in the night that I'm still rocking away, somewhere lovely. No, it's fine. It normally doesn't bother me at all. But when I have got the windows open, I'm literally on the railway track. But yeah, I'm so used to it. It's weird. I think anyone else would absolutely hate it. And in fact, when we were looking around this flat, it had been there for a while, and I remember thinking, what's the issue here? And then I looked and I thought, that's it. That's the reason. And I said to the agent, I said, you know what? If there's anyone in the world that's not going to be bothered by this, it's me. So I think he was quite relieved when we did take it.
I love your on-brand house bag. Actually, we get the Flying Scotsman comes round. And actually this year it was about to start doing Edinburgh to Aberdeen, and the line goes through the bottom of the garden.
Okay.
And I went through a terrible period of tweeting the railway company asking them to build me a halt.
Fort Colgan.
But you can always go down and see that. Now, why don't I give you a proper introduction and say hi to the people that are here. So I'm Jenny Colgan, and I am delighted to be interviewing the amazing Monisha Rajesh for Waterstones Online. Born in 1982, you child, in Norfolk. Manisha grew up there and Sheffield and Madras. She attended the famous City University Journalism School and has written for The Guardian, The Times, The New York Times and many others. But she's best known as a travel writer, specifically for her 2 renowned books on train travel. First, Around India in 80 Trains, an unvarnished, warm and engrossing account of a country in transition, published in 2010. And now, published in hardback last year and in paperback now, if I'm right. Yeah. Around the World in 80 Trains. Big step up there. A fascinating account of travelling 75,000 miles by railway.
45,000 miles.
45,000, sorry.
Crap, even
Well, you should just do it twice. Including Tibet, North Korea and Kazakhstan. It is full of joy and adventure and life, and is exactly what you need if you, like all of us, almost all of us, are stuck at home right now, armchair travelling yourself. So, Monisha, I want to ask you, how are travel writers made? How did you travel as a child?
Oh gosh, it's funny because I was thinking about this question earlier, because obviously you're going to ask me about that. But when I set off to do my first book, which is here, I didn't even think of it as a travel book. I really didn't, because I just wanted to go to India for 4 or 5 months and just travel around and get to know the country better again, because I lived there very briefly when I was 9. It was just 2 years, and I was born in Norfolk, and I didn't know any different. I'd grown up with Simon and the Witch and hobnobs and hamsters as pets, and living in India suddenly was a real shock to the system, and I just didn't take very well to it, and nor did my family. I think my parents had been away for so long that England was just so familiar to them, and India was an alien country again. So I wanted to go back and just see what it was like, and see if I could sort of, I guess, reconcile our differences as, someone that was Indian but also British. And it was, I guess, in my head, it was a sort of memoir. And then I realized when I'd actually finished doing the book that what I'd done was actually a piece of travel writing. So yeah, when I was a kid, because we moved so much, I guess I did travel. I just traveled by need rather than want. And I moved around so much that I guess sort of being plucked out of one place and finding myself in another every 2 or 3 years was quite normal to me. And I think that's sort of just become a part of my genetic makeup now, that after a couple of years, if I've stayed in one place for too long, I feel that urge to go off and do something different. And I think that's why when I travel, I don't feel unsettled, really. I'm so used to kind of having to make friends really quickly and having to find my feet really fast and familiarizing myself with an area really quickly, and discovering things and discovering, you know, new ways of doing things, new cultures, new people. That I guess it was just, maybe it did just come naturally to me to go and do that as a profession.
Actually, I do want to ask you about that. Now I'm going to skip around the questions that I have here.
Don't mind me, Jenny. I got myself a glass of Prosecco because it's my one evening without my kids.
Oh, well, look, I've got boring old tea. Oh, for goodness sake. Oh, I got that wrong. Well, no, what was it? Because I love traveling by train. You know, I get a sleeper from London to Edinburgh all the time when I am working. I traveled up Miami to New York. I took the train just last year. But I always need the poshest carriage that I can afford. If I can have a carriage to myself, that's pretty much ideal. I love to travel. I don't like to travel with someone else's feet in my face. But you can't really do that as a travel writer, can you? Do you have to force yourself to travel slightly grottier than you might? Otherwise, you wouldn't meet anyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I didn't really realize it at the time, but you know, as you get older, your wants and needs change ever so slightly. And when I did my first book, it was 2010, and I was 28, and I knew that I had to meet everybody. I had to meet every single person, and that's why India was a great place to do this, because I mean, in one Indian train, you've literally got politicians and businessmen sitting with MacBooks and earphones up at one end of the train and one first class carriage, and then at 37 carriages down the other end, you've got farmers sitting on wooden slats with old school weights, you know, measuring out fruit in paper bags. And you can spend one journey just going from one end to the other, and you see the entire, you know, Indian demographic on a train. It's just a sort of microcosm of Indian society. And so I was able to, you know, sit in those slats with them. I used to squat in luggage racks so that I could see what was going on. And it was really fun. It was really, really fun. And, you know, you get used to unusual situations very quickly. I mean, like all of us have right now. I don't know about you, but I've sort of found myself in a routine now. And as weird as it was at the beginning, I've got used to it, and the same was when I travelled. I got very used to being in third class, and you know, waking up with somebody completely random sitting on my feet, or sitting on my rucksack, or reading my book that I left on the side of the table, helping themselves to my food, and it's fun. And I knew, obviously, you know, someone had paid me a huge amount of money, I'd be sitting up at the other end in a nice comfort compartment, but no one wanted to read about what a fancy time I was having. And, you know, you need the warts and all of travel, because also you have to remember that your readers are going to be all kinds of people. You're going to have backpackers, you know, A-level students. You're going to have retirees who've got a lot of cash. So you've got to cover sort of all ends of the spectrum, I think.
Why trains specifically?
Again, when I did my India book, it was not because I love trains. It absolutely wasn't that at all. It's just that when I thought I need to spend 4 or 5 months in this country and I need to travel around, what's the best way to do this and the cheapest, most efficient way? I was looking at a map of all these different cities, and I thought, what's that amazing little sort of embroidery that was all over the country? And I looked at the key and it said Indian Railways, and I realized that they could quite literally get you into every nook and cranny in a way that no aeroplane would ever get you. And also it was just so cheap. I had a 3-month rail pass that was £350, and
oh, wow.
It included, and that was second class sleeper, included all my food, all my overnight journeys. So I mean, it was nothing. It was absolutely nothing, and it dropped me right into the heart of, you know, Indian people. And there's no other mode of transport that would have allowed me to do that. And you know, so really my trip was about 4 months of travel that happened to be by train. And then by the end of it, I realized that the trains were actually that was it. The trains were the heart and the soul of my book. And they were what had led me to my story and led me to all those people. So when I came to the second one, this one, Around the World in 80 Trains, I knew that it had to be by train again. And I wasn't convinced that there was any country in the world that could, you know, emulate Indians' railways. But it was a real surprise, and a really lovely one to find, you know, not exactly what Indian Railways was like, but every country's got its own, you know, lovely cultures that are represented through the trains. People travel in really kind of unique ways. And you can really see the nature of a country and its people through the railways, everywhere you go. And again, it just gave me such brilliant access to people. You know, you get into a train and there you are, you've got 6 people sitting around you that you can talk to straight away if they want to. And your stories are just right in front of you. It's just a gift, actually.
Oh, that's Paul Theroux in his wonderful book about the railways. He talks. It always strikes me as this. He talks about the kindness of people who let you look into their lives from a passing train. Have you found that?
Oh God, yes, so much. All over the place. And I think that was one of the loveliest bits about doing my travels by train, was that I don't know about anyone else, but I find that those encounters only really happen on board trains. And I think it's that fleetingness of the nature of train travel, that someone gets on and within, 5 or 10 minutes, you can find out the most intimate details about them.
I'm so sorry. Someone's slightly ignoring the "don't come in" sign on the door, but it'll be very quiet. It's fine.
Yeah.
Do you think people tell you more because it's a limited journey, even if it's 24 hours?
No, they really do. And even if it's just a 15-minute trip that they happen to have with you, I think because you've got that anonymity on trains where you don't need to tell anybody who you are or where you're from or what you're doing. You just hop on with your ticket and your bag, or no bag, as some people had. And then they hop off, and you can get off a stop early, you can stay on longer than you want to, and no one needs to know anything about you that they don't have to know. And that was what was so lovely. And I found, often you'd find yourself in the middle of a kind of therapy session with somebody talking about, mother-in-law disputes, about, massive issues they'd had with families and falling outs and rewritings of wills. And you'd just think, no one that I'm actually really close friends with would disclose this kind of stuff with such ease, but people do, they really do. And also I think because you've got such different kinds of people around, you get such incredible advice from people. And 6 people in a carriage, you might have a 70-year-old who's an army war veteran, and then you've got a couple of Italian teenagers, and you'll get such brilliant perspectives from people. And that's why I love it so much.
Oh goodness, you're making me want to go away. Yeah. Can you tell people who haven't read the book yet, there's 2 countries you go to, well, it's all interesting really, but there's 2 that are particularly interesting because they're controversial, and it's, could you talk a little bit about both Tibet and North Korea? And I'm particularly interested, North Korea really made me laugh. It's very funny, the book as well in many ways, but how much you secretly quite liked quite a lot.
Yeah. So yes, North Korea and Tibet, they were the 2 places that made me really think quite seriously about where I was going. But I had to put my journalist hat on when I was doing this, and know that as a traveller, I wouldn't necessarily choose to travel to North Korea. Tibet, I had always wanted to visit. I had since I was a kid, and since I knew about this train, I was absolutely desperate to visit, because again, they're 2 places that you can read so much about them and still have absolutely no idea what to expect and what they're going to look like, no matter what pictures other people paint. And so I was really keen to get there myself. And when I found out that it's actually a British company based in China called Koryo Tours. They're in Beijing. They take tourists out to North Korea all the time. They do about 100 trips a year, and I had no idea that this was even possible. And I found they were doing a train trip for 10 days all around the country. And so that was the main reason I signed on, because I thought, if there's a chance to take trains up and down North Korea, I mean, I can't possibly pass that up. So that was the reason I went. And yeah, I did. And it is quite literally like no other place on earth. It's so strange when we had to fly into the country. So when we landed, you're driving along from the airport in Pyongyang, and you feel like you're looking at people in a zoo, because they dress completely differently. They're all in very muted colors. There's hardly any traffic on the roads, and all those sights that you just generally expect, and you realize that your brain is programmed to expect when you land in a country and you've got built up places on the suburbs, and then you've got lots and lots of trees, and then you have lots of traffic as you move further into a city. It just wasn't like that at all, especially in an Asian country. There's no color, there's no noise, there was no kind of that yellowy pollution in the skies, because there's no factories, and it was very blue. And then these propaganda posters just appeared everywhere with the sickles and hammers, and it was quite, it was quite arresting. And 10 days was difficult because you don't know what you're seeing. You don't know what you're hearing, what you're being told. You just have to kind of use your better judgment. And also, you know, we have 5 guides with us, and you really want to ask them what is going on and take them to one side and say, you know, go on, between you and me, what's actually happening here. But you can't, because you're going to put them in a really awkward position. You might get them into loads of trouble. So you just have to just use your discretion and just work your way through it. And there were times where, you know, Jem and I, my now husband, came with me, had moments where we thought, you know, what if this room is bugged? What if they know I'm a journalist? What if they figured it all out and, you know, they don't give my passport back? And all sorts of thoughts do go through your mind. But I wouldn't ever change the fact that I did it. It was absolutely eye-opening, and I'm really glad I did, because so much that I'd read was just blatantly not true. And a lot that I'd read I could confirm, and I think it's really important to go and see these things for yourself if you can, and not just, you know, believe, oh, just everything is somebody else's perspective, it's all someone's opinion. So yeah, it was a good thing. And Tibet, same. It was beautiful. It still was an absolutely incredibly gorgeous country. But yeah, it changed. It's obviously changed so much year on year. It's becoming a completely different place. There are Coke machines, there are monks wearing Nike trainers, there are Porsche Cayennes in the street. It's, you know, it's not what I'd imagined. But equally, it was a really good place to visit, to challenge my own kind of privilege and my own, I guess, my exoticizing of, you know, these lovely sweet place with monks and bells and monasteries, because, you know, they've moved on. They also moved on. They want to have these iPhones, and they want to have technology, and they want to wear stuff that we wear, and who are we to tell them that they can't? So yeah, it was very good to challenge my own preconceived notions about things.
Yes, yeah, no, I really liked it when you said that, because I think we do the same up in Scotland, where we, you know, you romanticize old crofts and, you know, old kind of drafty kind of bits in the ground where people were living, and you think, oh, isn't it charming? And of course it wasn't. It was horrible. It's really, really hard, and your kids kept dying. And as soon as someone came along and said, do you want to come and work in this cotton mill, and, you know, we can probably keep some of your kids alive, then, well, quite. Yeah, one of the things I really love about your writing is you're a very good food writer, and you write evocative about food. How does food fit into the way that you write, and where is the best train food in the world?
Sorry, they've just chosen to have about 6 different trains at once. Sorry, could you just repeat that last bit?
That's right. I was just saying, you write very well about food. Is food an important part of your life, and is it an important part of your writing? And where is the best train food?
Oh God, yeah, food is a massive part of my life, huge. Yeah, massively. In fact, that's part of why my husband and I sort of got together, was because on our first date we ended up just in a pub at 5 o'clock on a Sunday, and then we were both hungry, and I just said, do you fancy just going to this Korean place across the road? And our very short drink extended into a really long, massive Korean meal, and we realized we just had so much in common with terms of food, that I knew that this was someone I was going to get on really well with. And yeah, food is a big part of, you know, my family are huge foodies. They've always been cooking in my house since I was little. I learned to cook quite early. So yeah, being on the trains is a really big deal for me. And in fact, one of the first things I would do was check out the dining car. As soon as you get on and you stash your bags, you've got to find out where the food is, when it's going to come, what time the place is going to close, and make sure you're fully sorted before any of those mishaps happen where you're on a 56-hour journey and you've got no food. So I think my
German trains don't feed you at all.
They don't. Oh,
every chance of there being no buffet on a German train.
Oh, that's no good. That's probably why I got out of Europe quite quickly, because you get very generic sort of panini and not very interesting things. And I think Asian trains, as the answer to your second part of the question, Asian trains are just fabulous for food, because everything's cooked on board. And you can smell it at the sort of 7 o'clock in the evening. You can sort of follow your nose down to the dining car. And I think I can just see your face. I know, I'm just thinking of food on a Thai train right now. Yeah.
Oh, it's all those dumplings. Do you know what? Yeah, I was thinking about your book, and I thought, it's my daughter's birthday on Friday. I thought, I'm just gonna have dumplings.
Why not? Why not? Yeah, I think Malaysia was the train travel. Well, that segment between, I think it was Kuala Lumpur and Bangkok, had the most fantastic dining car, and I still think of it now sometimes, where they had this really sweet laminated menu that they brought and put in front of you. And for 70 baht, which I think was pound at the time, or no, 120 baht, it's about 1.50. You would get a 4-course meal that started with a fresh tom yum soup, and they brought sort of duck red curry with fresh pineapple, steamed rice, fried fish, oh god, everything, and loads of cups of tea, and it was just the most fantastic meal. And then they bring you things saying, do you want to order breakfast? Of course you would. And I remember being woken up at 8 o'clock with this hand holding a big hot bowl of steaming congee with fresh spring onion on top and dried onions. And oh god, now when I think about it, it just makes me want to cry a bit, because it's going to be a long time before I'm going to get food like that again. But yeah, the train journeys were just fantastic for food. They're brilliant. They actually shaped all my journeys.
Well, yeah, here's what I wanted. Yes, although LNER is not bad and working hard. Here's what I want to ask you, because you have children now.
Yes.
So you, and actually, I think your children are of the age where you probably should be traveling with them before you're stuck in horrible school holidays all the time, if I'm right.
I know. Yeah, in fact, it's funny, when I was doing the whole do I sit in front of a bookshelf thing, I thought I can't, because they're having dinner right now and they've been banished to the balcony, which is as far away as possible, so you can't hear any screaming. And I'm actually sitting in front of their bookshelf.
Oh!
So we've got Mr. Men, and we've got little Beatrix Potters and all the other little tiny books there. Yeah, they're tiny. They're 11 months and 3. So I would love to be traveling around with them right now. And annoyingly, obviously we can't, but we do have plans to go away as soon as we can. We're going to take them off. And before this, we've been on loads of trains. They absolutely love trains. They often sit in front of the window down here watching the trains go past. They're obsessed with Thomas the Tank Engine, and I think that the older one anyway certainly is. I think she's aware of what I do, because she always sort of picks up my books and things and points out the trains, and we've shown her YouTube videos and things of me doing stuff, and she's always asking, "Mummy, can we go on the trains?" So I think they probably travel pretty well. I'm not sure how much of that journey I'd be able to take them along on, because it was quite hardcore. But I'm definitely, the next trip we've got planned is hopefully to get the train down to south of France if we can with them. Yes, down to Nice.
Oh God, you can get to Bordeaux in about 10 minutes now.
Yeah, we should be able to. So yeah, fingers crossed.
Once we're moving again. When we used to live in the Netherlands, and we used to catch the train back every couple of weeks or so, and my son was about 3 at the time, and he would only sit in the Eurostar luggage rack. Oh. Because there's tons of space and you can lie down in it. So that was it. Every Saturday morning, you just lie down on the luggage rack. Perfectly happy.
I've done that. I have to admit, I've actually had a few long distance trains in India in the luggage rack. In fact, I think I spent an evening on the laundry once, because I hadn't got a seat and I hadn't got a berth. And I was like, it's there, it's comfy. And I gave the guy 50 rupees and he was like, it's fine, just have it. It's more comfy than, topping and tailing with a complete random, so it's fine.
There's a lovely bit in around the world. I can't even remember where it is, but you're on a hard seat for 23 hours.
Oh,
and you say that the locals. Where was it?
It was in Vietnam. It was when we went from Hanoi down to from Hanoi to Da Nang down to Ho Chi Minh. Yeah, that last segment. Which was pretty hellish, actually, to be honest.
You've just got you just say that the locals just keep watching you to see how long you can stick it out.
They literally just sat round and they just wouldn't stop looking. Like, you just knew that they're like, go on, you're gonna break at some point. Oh God.
I love the idea of you sitting on a bench for 23 hours just to spite some people you would never see again.
I remember sitting with my feet on somebody's beer crate, with my luggage just sort of shoved up against the side, thinking, it's fine. There will be a hotel at the end of this at some point. But it's fun, you got to do these things to appreciate your bed by the end of it. And it's great. It's brilliant as well, because you can't just travel in that bubble. It's really important, like, when you go out, to just challenge yourself and see how everybody else lives. There's no point in doing it otherwise. You may as well stay at home.
Yeah, I suppose. So if you could be on transplant yourself onto any train now, going anywhere, what would it be?
Oh Oh, do you know, in terms of just absolutely stunning train, the Qinghai Railway to Tibet, I know it's a controversial train, but if we just move that part aside for
Is that really, is it 5 kilometers high? That can't be right.
Oh, it's 5,072 meters.
Yeah, that's
no,
5 kilometers up the way.
Yeah.
That's astounding.
It's absolutely unbelievable. It's but you feel it. You can really feel it. I've had really quite horrendous altitude sickness actually, but you don't realise because it creeps up on you so slowly because you're overnight for quite a large chunk of it from Xining up to Lhasa Valley. It's 56 hours if you go from Shanghai all the way, but it's I think it's 27 and then 26 or something if you break it up. But it was the most spectacularly beautiful journey with, oh God, just like the plateau was just, it was yellow. It was like a canary yellow and the silver molten lakes, and then suddenly you get yaks, and then it's just blue ice mountains all around you, just literally closing in on the train. It was absolutely spectacular. I've never seen anything like it. And I really did feel quite sad when we left, because with a lot of places I travel to, I know that I can come back again, and it might be a few years, but there's still that possibility. But with Tibet, I really didn't know whether that was going to be a possibility again. So I left feeling really, really sad, thinking this might be the last I ever get to see this. And literally just sitting against the window with my hands up against the glass, trying to take in as much of the view as I could, because it will probably be very different. And I doubt we'd be able to get up there again. So who knows?
Wow. And I was going to ask if you were giving advice to people who maybe don't take trains very much, or you know, what for your money, what would you say is the one that everybody would love? And I don't mean kind of, you know, chickens in the carriage and people getting slightly frightened. I mean, what's a train ride that would, because you know, I read the book last year, and then I looked at it again this week, and I just sat down with my husband and was like, we're going to Japan. You can go and do some stuff. I'm catching all those damn trains. We're going to eat the meal that you didn't even like. The live meals and stuff. What's your absolute go-to? Because people must ask you all the time, which train journey should we take?
There is one that for me is like an all-round fantastic train. It is in India. It's the Mandovi Express, which goes from, I still call it Bombay, from Bombay down to Goa. It's 12 hours, but it's during the day. It leaves at 7 o'clock in the morning, and you get in to go at 7 in the evening. And it's just the most fabulous journey in every possible way. It goes down the Konkan coast, and it's got the Sahyadri Hills on one side and the Arabian Sea on the other, and the doors are flung wide open, and it's fairly slow. So you can sit in the doorway and you're going over these amazing coconut groves and lakes and rivers and sea, and it's so slow and so meandering, and there's warm air billowing in and out, and you're in sleeper berth. So if you just get a bit bored or you're a bit dozy, you can nap for a couple of hours, you can read a book, you can do anything you want. And it's also got the best dining car of all Indian trains, hands down. They cook everything fresh on board, and you have hawkers going up and down honestly every 10 to 15 minutes, and they've always got something different, whether it's samosas or chicken biryani in little, you know, terracotta pots with fresh raita on top, or tea and coffee and spring rolls and deep fried okra, and it's always coming up and down, and it's like a buffet. It's amazing. And of course it only costs about sort of 50 or 60p for a portion of the food, and it's the most congenial, unbelievably fun journey. And anyone who is a bit nervous of trains would enjoy that, because it's just a day. It's a day's journey, and it is just bliss. It really is. So that's hands down my favorite train.
Oh God, that sounds amazing. We have some viewer questions. Yeah. Hello. So I am going to pivot to these. The first, this is a lovely question from JRW 1904. What's the most memorable act of kindness you saw or experienced during your travels? A lovely question.
That's a really sweet question. I know immediately what this is. But yes, this was actually during Around the World in 80 Trains. It was on the train from Shanghai to Xining, and we met a really lovely school teacher called Jerry, who we got chatting to immediately, because it's quite unusual in China to find somebody who is bilingual. So I kind of grabbed onto him and just asked him everything I possibly could, because it's very hard to know what's going on and to find out where you are and what you're seeing outside, because no one can explain it to you. So it was brilliant to have Jerry, and he was so sweet, and he explained everything from the Cultural Revolution to, you know, the apple orchards being bulldozed outside and what it was like growing up there. And because we're breaking that journey up in Shinning and then going on to Lhasa, we just wanted 4 or 5 hours to just find somewhere to stay, shower, get some food, and then carry on. And so he actually called up a hotel in Shinning, and he got us a room, and he said, I've sorted it all out for you. They know that you're coming. And he gave us the address and explained how to get there. And he got off before us. And when we actually got to Shinning and we got to the hotel and we were checking out after having showered and watched a bit of TV, getting ready for our night journey, we went to pay, and we found that Jerry had already paid for us. And it was just so, oh God, it was one of those.
Someone never again, and you know, that's amazing.
So
that's just
unnecessary as well. It's not like we couldn't afford it. It was you know, just a very straightforward,
simple act of kindness.
It's so sweet of him to do that. And we couldn't find him. We didn't have his number. We couldn't say thank you. We couldn't anything. And yeah, it's just, it was things like that. There were more people who did things like that for us, but he really stuck out because it was just such a sweet gesture.
Such a kind thing to do.
It was lovely. It really was.
Oh, that's lovely. Here we go. From What Penna Writes. What's the most important thing to remember when writing a travel book? Oh, I don't know. You pen properly.
Important thing to remember when writing a travel book. Do you know what? For me, the most important thing is getting people's dialogue correct. Because for me, if I say I'm writing non-fiction, then it's non-fiction. It's absolutely what somebody said to me. I have to write exactly what you said. I owe it to you to do that because you've been kind enough to talk to me and share your story. I have to describe you accurately. And I think I've got to bring alive, because it's travel, I have to bring alive where I am, and you need to be there. You need to feel like you're there with me. And just telling you that this person was nice or telling you that the food was lovely isn't going to help you feel like you're with me. You need to feel like you're sitting there in the compartment with me. So I need to tell you how hot it is in there. I need to tell you that I can smell somebody's aftershave. I need to tell you that they've got a little bit of spinach stuck in their teeth, because then it makes you really know that you're talking to that person and you're feeling that energy that's in the room, in the compartment. And one of the ways that I do that is if I am chatting to someone and there's something really distinctive about them that I know I'm really going to want to put in the book later, I nip off to the loo and I just quickly make a note. I've got tiny notebooks about this big and it's in my back pocket, and I'll quickly scribble it down so I won't forget it. But often I just record conversations with my iPhone, and I do ask people, I just say I'm doing this and I've got a really terrible memory, so would you mind? And more often than not, they're fine with it. And later I just transcribe everything and I put everything together. I have receipts, I have train tickets, I've got dates, I've got photos, I've got everything. So I sort of jigsaw it all together. And then when I come to write, I've got so many different little sort of memory aids, I guess, that I can put it together. But yeah, I think as a travel person, that's the most important thing for me, to make you feel like you're there with me. And I've got to give you all those senses and colours and feelings and tastes so that you really feel like you're with me.
Yeah. Which we do, I think. So someone's also saying travel essentials, and this is Jenna SG _ I assume she means for any traveller rather than for a travel writer. What can't you go with it?
For doing what I did, my travel essentials, especially if it's train travel that you're talking about, a sleeper sheet. Absolutely take a sleeper sheet, because when it's really hot, you can just sleep in that and nothing else. But when it's really cold, they're really great at insulating you, and they cost almost nothing. They're these lovely little silk bags that bundle up to about this big. But they're also really great from protecting you from other stuff as well. So if you've got some really manky blankets and they're a bit suspect, you can get inside that and feel quite happy inside it. And also, what else? Hand soap. I always take a tiny little thing of hand soap, because invariably on a train there isn't any.
There's never any, or somebody's next to it, or it's the most.
There's never hand soap. Yeah. There's toilet roll. Always keep a toilet roll with you in your side pocket, and make sure it's in the most accessible place, because at 3 a.m. when it's really dark, the last thing you want is to be fumbling around at the bottom of a rucksack looking for it. But also, if you're not a very good sleeper, earplugs, eye mask, absolutely mandatory. if you don't sleep well in trains with snoring and other people's weirdness going on around you. But also, oh, the one thing that really kept me going was, sounds really mad, but a little pair of pearl earrings, because when you're traveling and you look a scruff from morning till night, when you suddenly find yourself in a nice 5-star hotel, if you decide to push the boat out 1 week, when you have to go down for dinner, it's awful trying to just forage through a bag with trying to find what's the least scruffy, dirty, smelly item of clothing. But a pair of pearl earrings can immediately make you look really classy, no matter what else you're wearing. And it absolutely does the trick. And I used to have them and a little pair of foldable ballet pumps that used to just make everything better. At least in my head, I might have still looked like an absolute tramp, but to me, it felt a lot better. So yeah, tiny things, tiny things.
That's a brilliant piece of advice. Do you know, it's funny because I have really noticed, because I'm not going anywhere. I don't know where any of my earrings are. And I do, a watch, you're wearing your watch. I haven't worn my watch in months. And it's weird, isn't it? The little things. I'm going to start wearing my earrings again. This is from Alan Ray 7. Of all the places, we have literally 3 minutes to wind this up, by the way. So,
okay.
Well, 2 more questions. Of all the places you have visited, which place could you see yourself living and why?
Oh, wow.
That's a good question.
Yeah, do you know, we did have that conversation a few times, the livability challenge when we get somewhere. I think Vancouver was one of the cities that I just adored. Mountains.
Well, a lot of people say that.
It's beautiful. It's warm. You've got mountains on one side, you've got the sea on the other, you've got lovely people, you've got amazing food. It's really multicultural. Just a lovely place. It just felt like a really warm, very welcoming city. Also Shanghai, I just thought it had such an energy. It was so fun and just electric. Just going out at any time of day, you just know that there's just a really fun place to be. And it had that. It's obviously a massive, buzzing, big city, but it also had really beautiful, tiny little quiet corners that I really need. I think when I'm thinking of somewhere to live. But also, there was one other, I can't remember the top of my head. Maybe Toronto, actually. I thought it was a lovely city as well. Canada. Yeah, really nice.
Yeah, it's nice. And I was also going to ask you the same question as someone who is handle is Let's Stay Home and Read, which is what are you reading and what's your favorite book? What's your favorite travel book?
Oh, my favorite travel book.
Say.
You know, I'm probably going to get shot for saying this, but I never read travel until I started doing what I did. And even then I didn't really read very much, because I don't think it'd be unfair to say that there's not very many people that look like me that do travel writing. Not very many women, for a start.
There's not very many women. That's right, you're absolutely right.
Largely very white, very male-dominated section of books, and I just couldn't relate to them. I just couldn't relate to any of these books that I picked up and I read, and I thought, I can't imagine doing that. I can't imagine just striding into a country unnoticed with this sort of unchecked privilege of being able to just go anywhere you want at night, any corner of the city. And I think that's why when I came to do my book, I always wondered whether I was a bit of an imposter and was I able to do this. And then I realized that actually there was a big group of people that didn't feel very represented in travel writing. And I have had some really lovely messages from women and LGBTQ people and people of colour saying it's really nice to have a different perspective, because we felt a lot of these things and we never really say anything about it. But yes, sorry, I got a bit sidetracked there. But yes, books that I have.
No, thank you. I wanted to ask you about that before, actually, because it's so interesting. You do, as a woman that likes travelling, you particularly the India book, I thought you were extremely brave.
Well, yeah, and I think, I mean, I didn't think a huge amount about being a woman or being a brown person, because I travel so much anyway. So for me, it's almost like just going on a very, very big extended holiday, but having to make a lot of notes along the way. But I did really feel it. And, you know, countries like Russia and Eastern Europe, even in China to some degree, you could really feel people looking at you in a very different way. And it made me realize quite, you know, funny to say it now, but how hugely safe I always feel in the UK. And I don't feel like I stick out like a sore thumb at all, but in a lot of countries I did. And I know a lot of women do. And you do behave in a very different way as well, and on trains at night time, and when you're going for a meal alone at 10 o'clock at night in the city where you've just arrived, in a way that a man just doesn't even have to consider. so yeah, I never really did read travel writing that I felt I could relate to at all. But the one person who I do really love is Jeff Dyer. He's hilarious. He just makes me laugh so much, and I like the fact that his travel books. His travel books really challenge the idea of travel and all those things that you think you have to do when you're traveling, like taking photos and buying souvenirs. And he really just takes all the banal and makes it so screamingly funny. And I love that. And that's what I think I hope that people feel when they read travel. You should be amused and you should be entertained by it, because a lot of those things, you know, they're insane. Things go wrong all the time. You know, you find yourself in the most horrendous situations and you've just got to find it funny. Otherwise you won't last 10 minutes.
Oh, that's exactly right. Oh, Monisha, it's been so lovely to talk to you.
Thanks.
Everyone at Waterstones, by the way, everybody who's running the Waterstones account, thank you guys for your service through this, because the delivery service has been amazing. Hold your book up, please. Are your book of the month, aren't you?
It's non-fiction book of the month. That's the hardback. That is the paperback. Choose whichever you like. Yeah, both. And that's my first one. If you didn't know, I'd already done one. That's Around India in 80 Trains, which is the prequel. And actually, this does follow almost immediately on. So if you're feeling bereft after having finished this one, you can go back and pick up this one. But yeah, thank you so much to everyone from Waterstones for a start, for choosing it as a non-fiction book of the month. It's lovely. And if you're watching and you have read the book, thank you, and thank you for picking it up. And if you're watching and you haven't, then maybe you can pick it up. There's still 4 more days for it being book of the month. And thank you, Jenny. That's brilliant. It's really, really lovely.
Oh, it's lovely to see you. Well, listen, I'm looking forward to our pre-booked breakfast when people are allowed to give us the breakfast. I shall go straight off the sleeper and I will be straight there.
That sounds brilliant.
It'll be lovely.
Thank you so much, Jenny. It's been great.